Welcome to the Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with commentary editor Conn Carroll. And Conn, you wrote this week about the fact that a court in New York, the same one that legalized the first same-sex marriage, approved a polygamous marriage. Tell us about what's going on in this unusual case.
Sure. So this is both of these cases, both the same-sex marriage one back in 1989 and this one now. These are both cases about rent-controlled apartments. So of course, in New York City, rent is through the roof. So for decades now, they've had rent control policies that don't allow landlords to raise the rent. However, people die. And so there's a body of law to determine who qualifies as family for people living with the person and whether or not they'll be able to keep the same lower rent in that apartment. So back in 1989, one of the first cases to recognize same-sex marriage as a valid family unit was a rent-controlled case where one of the people partners died, and the person who was living with the person, either they were of the same sex, said, no, we are a family, and the New York court said, yes, you are a family under this law, so therefore we're going to recognize your union. So this case is now a little more complicated. Well, it's polygamy, so it's going to be more complicated.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you have two men who had been married for 25 years, except they had never lived together. They had always maintained separate apartments. And then since 2012, one man had moved in with another man. So they were now living in the same apartment together. And the guy that was married to the other guy did not like this other guy. And so they did not get along. And so he never really approved of this other relationship. But they still lived together, and the other two stayed married and went on vacation together and maintained the same bank accounts, etc. So this guy dies. And so now this guy wants to maintain the rent-controlled apartment from the one, his roommate, who he is claiming is his partner. And so the landlord's saying, no, that this is a throuple, this is not a real thing, you can't do this. And so the court, the New York court in this case, says, you know what, we think, didn't use the word throuple, but we think polygamous relationships are a valid type of family form. And so they didn't rule that it was a marriage, but they say we're going to hold an evidentiary hearing to see if this couple was actually family. But they left with the possibility that yes, a polygamous relationship where there were three people involved is perfectly fine family form for the state of New York.
If after that evidentiary hearing the court did approve this sort of polygamous relationship as a valid form of marriage, would you expect more courts to recognize that? I mean, is this sort of validating the slippery slope argument the conservatives had?
Well, I mean, in the court case itself, the judge said, hey, look, when we first decided this back in 1989, we created this waterfall, this domino of Hawaii, other courts then coming on and doing the same thing. And of course, the Supreme Court eventually found the same way. And they've also pointed to two towns in Massachusetts, actually, have also legalized same-sex, or not same-sex, I'm sorry, polygamous unions.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a growing number of both, courts and towns that are embracing polygamy.
Let's switch gears a little bit. This week you also wrote about the Senate landscape for Democrats. Obviously, after some summer resurgence polling for Democrats, there's less and less chance that they are going to maintain control of the Senate. But you write about how things might be even more dire in the next cycle. Why is that?
Right. So this year, the Democrats aren't really defending any Senate seats in states that went for Trump in 2016 and 2020. Now, they are defending some seats where swing states, and states that not that they were swing, but are kind of touch and go, like Nevada and Arizona. Nevada, actually, the Republicans now ahead. In Arizona, the Democrats now ahead. But it's a pretty even environment. But if you look ahead to 2024, they have to defend three seats that are in deep red states like Montana, Ohio, Indiana. These are states that have gone Republican for a long time now. And they also have to defend three more swing states that went for Trump in 2016 and then Biden in 2020, like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, so swing states. So that's 6 seats they have to defend in either hard red states or actual swing states. And then they also actually have to defend again in Nevada and Arizona again. So that is 8 seats that they have to have very close races on, whereas Republicans are only having 10 seats up, and they're all in super red states like Texas, Florida, etc. So it's just going to be a very tough outlook for them in 2024.
Well, Conn, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Conn and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.